The Indianapolis Colts finished 2023 almost in the playoffs and with a winning record despite injuries galore and in key positions like quarterback with Anthony Richardson. How will 2024 fare, and what kind of predictions should people have on their minds for this Colts squad in year two of Steichen and Richardson? Well, guess what? We're going to talk about it. So welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. Of course, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Drake Wally, and I am joined by the one and only Noah Gebert. Noah, you know what, man? This is always a fun one because now that draft time is over, now that we're kind of in the quote-unquote non-exciting part, right, of free agency, all the real big names have been taken anyway. This is kind of the time to look ahead and make some bold predictions, way too early predictions, whatever you want to call them. But sometimes they come true, but it's really nice to speculate and you know, especially when you've got a team that's got such a bright future, or as it appears with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and I love bold predictions. I feel like the last few shows I've been on, I've just kind of tried to squeeze a little one in and here and there. Now we get the whole show to dedicate to it. So I like that, getting that opportunity to kind of compile these bold predictions and then kind of get some backing behind it to really kind of show why you're saying what you're saying.
Yeah, and look, you know, as we kind of get into it, there's plenty of young talent, whether it's, you know, high profile guys like Leatu Latu, Adonai Mitchell, or guys that might get buried a little bit. The guys right after him, Matt Gonsalves, you know, guys like Tanner Bortolini. They took a linebacker, they took a safety, turned him into a linebacker in Jalen Carley's, and they took another safety in Jalen Simpson and turned him into a corner. So they've got a lot of interesting draft picks here. Anthony Gold looks really promising, but we're going to talk from top to bottom here. And even though, you know, I think Zach Moss obviously left the team and a few others like Gardner Minshew, still one of the youngest squads in the entire NFL. So before we get started here, let's get to the chat here. Truett Trussler, hi Drake and Noah, 6 predictions: AFC South crown, Richardson MVP candidate, sweep the Jags and Titans. Wow, that'd be awesome. Coach of the year, and Quiddy and Dio ball out because they have to. So absolutely love that. And we've got Bradley Presley, Jonathan Taylor for Offensive Player of the Year, and then NFL nerd JT, 1,600 yards and 12 touchdowns. So, hey, man, I'm just happy everybody's in here checking it out with us, throwing out some predictions. Continue to put them in the chat. It's always fun to speculate. Yeah. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we are going to kick right into this. So the first one might not be too bold, just because the player that it's involving, and I'll go ahead and kick this off. We'll bounce some volume back and forth, of course. But this player has just done nothing but be consistent. In fact, he's just continued to get better from year one in 2020. He's had nothing but rotation at quarterback, and that's Michael Pittman Jr. Now, my bold prediction is, some might think it's bold, some might not, but it's that he will set career bests again, by the way, in targets, receptions, and yards. Now, here's the thing about Pittman. So I'm not talking about touchdowns, because there's a lot of mouths to feed as far as red zone targets. A lot of AR's going to take up some. JT's going to take up some. We're not even talking about the rest of the receiving core or the tight ends. But you're talking about 40 catches, then 88 catches, then 99 catches, then 109 catches. You're talking about 61 targets, 129 targets, 141 targets, 156 targets. And then you're talking about 503 receiving yards, 1,082. Then he had 925 just because he had 3 different quarterbacks. And, of course, set his career high last year with 1,152. So that's with nothing but rotation at QB. I can't possibly bet against Michael Pittman to not continue this trend, Noah, with Steichen in year 2. Stability, if AR can stay healthy, that's a big question mark. But this is assuming, for the most part, he can stay healthy, unless at the end of the year they decide to sit him if they're ahead of things. How do you feel about that projection? Do you think it's outlandish? Do you think it's going to be close, under, over? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be close. I definitely think that could definitely happen for sure. You just look at the kind of the trajectory that his career's been on, and then you're kind of thinking that AR for a whole season after getting this whole offseason to work with him. You feel like that pairing might be a little more conducive to a higher stat line from Pittman. I was surprised he didn't throw touchdowns in there too. I think his career high is six touchdowns in a season.
Yeah, he's just not
I don't
really been a big red zone guy.
I don't think it would be crazy if he topped that also. I do have a question for you on this, because we were talking about the topic of Anthony Richardson staying healthy. If Joe Flacco ends up being the quarterback for 8 or 9 games, you think he still hits his career high?
I really do, and it's a short answer. He just continued to hit career highs with Carson Wentz after the injury, with Ellinger and Ryan and Foles, and then last year with Minshew. Flacco might even be better than Minshew. So I mean, he did okay with Rivers, in his rookie year. I just don't really see why he wouldn't continue to do well. Now, I will say, top these numbers, that'd be hard, because I think AD Mitchell, as the year goes on, I think he's going to cut into some of those targets.
Yeah. I mean, when you're kind of thinking about it, you're like banking on AR being the guy and them kind of having that chemistry that they at least show on social media and in the photos and everything. We didn't get to see much of it last year, but you kind of hope that he becomes that go-to guy, and all those screens that he can turn into rack yards really just kind of bolsters that up. 1152 career high in receiving yards. I feel like that one he should be able to overpass. Targets at 156 last season. I do feel like that's difficult to top. So I don't know. I feel like we'll kind of know this early in the season. Kind of seeing how he's working with Anthony Richardson, kind of how he's peppering him in and making sure he's getting involved. Pittman kind of cried out last year at the beginning of the year because he didn't feel like he was getting enough targets, and then very promptly got plenty of targets after that. So, I mean, if you kind of go into this season thinking that's going to carry over from the end of last year, then I think that volume is going to go way up.
Yeah, and before we get to a couple of very generous super chats here, 156 targets, but he missed a start and then played 16 games. So you're basically talking about almost 10 targets a game. Yep. He had like 7 games in a row with 8 catches or more. It was ridiculous. So looks like we got a couple super chats here from Andrew, and I call him the CFO, Patrick. Thank you so much for the super chat, Patrick. He's got a couple here. The first one says he predicts that AR and JT will have the most combined rushing yards for a QB and RB in the NFL by 250 yards.
It's big.
That is running the hell away with it, in my opinion, because now, don't get me wrong, I understand Derrick Henry on the other side of 30. He has also not had Lamar Jackson. I think that there's multiple. Bijan Robinson now, not Bijan Robinson. I'm thinking of oh my goodness, he's another incredibly mobile quarterback, and I'm totally Josh Allen and Josh Allen and James Cook, I believe it is. You've got there's a bunch of QB running back combinations, but I mean, what do you think about that projection? I mean, if they do that, I would assume the Colts better have a winning record.
Yeah, and that's also, I feel like if they get that stat, they reach that milestone. That means both of them played every game in the season, which is huge. I feel like if they're reaching that kind of number, then that's the whole season with your starting running back, your starting quarterback that had 2 snaps together last season. 2 really dynamic players on your offense you'd love to see together and love to see more of. 250 is a lot blowing it, but I mean,
I love it.
Anthony Richardson, he was involved heavily in the running game early last season before it took him out. Just not even like designed up little scheme things to get him explosive yards, but he was kind of being used in some shorter yards situations where he's getting 3rd and 2s and stuff like that, just putting the ball in his hands. So he's going to get the volume to be able to do that. And you assume, especially without that surefire RB2 in the Colts room, there's no Zach Moss to help kind of alleviate the workload from JT at this point. So you're leaning on him stronger than I think he would have been last year, even if he was healthy.
Yeah. And, at this point, it's just one of those things where I think that they have a lot of faith in Evan Hall. I think that they like Trey Sermon, and I think that they also do like Tyler Goodson too. I know he dropped that big pass, but that would be running away with it. So Patrick actually, because he's the CFO, and this is why we call him the Chief Financial Officer of the Horseshoe Huddle channel, is that he's got a second super chat. So Patrick, round of applause again for you. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. So Pittman will have a season-ending injury. Oh, so
this one's not as fun.
Before I even get into this, Noah had a brilliant idea of, I think it was the nightmare scenario 6. That's something that would be very, very intriguing because every single team, it doesn't matter who you are, you will have injuries. It does not matter who you are. You deal with them and you have to just pivot as best you can. So, but that's interesting that you mentioned this. So Pittman will have a season-ending injury by week 5, and by week 17, A.D. Mitchell will prove himself a wide receiver 1. Think Marlon Mack and JT. Well, when I think of Marlon Mack and JT, I think, damn, those two didn't get to play together for very long. But what do you think of that? I mean, do you think that, let's just hypothetically say, if Pittman goes down, do you think if A.D. Mitchell gets more playing time, do you think that he could become that wide receiver 1, being so young and really only one season of college football played where he showcased a lot of talent consistently?
Yeah, I think he'd definitely see an uptick in playing time. He plays sort of a different position and a different role in the offense than Pittman would, where he's kind of more battling it out for Pierce to be that vertical X receiver and not so much that underneath possession guy. So, I mean, you'd kind of be shoehorning him into a situation where maybe that's not his best fit. So I feel like if it is Pittman, that's the one that goes down. I feel like getting maybe they switch Alec Pierce over into that X, or Ashton Doolin, or the Y, and Ashton Doolin plays that Y. And they're kind of splitting time over there, and then A.D. Mitchell's just all alone at X and getting all the snaps there. Then he's going to be seeing those wide receiver 1 numbers. It's a lot more sad to think about this projection, but I think it could be possible.
Well, yeah, and heck, last season Michael Pittman dove for a ball and almost had his freaking head taken off against the Steelers. Okay, and so anything can happen in the NFL. So, Patrick, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. So, again, this is why we call Patrick the CFO of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, because we have a third super chat from Patrick. So, thank you for the third $5 super chat. His last bold prediction is that Anthony Richardson will play 14 games, and 2 games he's out. Now, he doesn't really provide context for that. Okay, so we'll just assume it's that they're just so far ahead they don't need to play AR, right? Flacco will win it for the Colts with 275 plus yards, 2 plus touchdowns, 1 interception in both games. So I guess, so the real interesting thing here is, like, goes back to kind of what you were saying, and I'll ask you this now. If Flacco does have to play, do you think that, like, how well do you think that he could work with a receiving core like this? Because, I mean, he really made David Njoku one of the most valued fantasy tight ends when he was, oh my God, when that guy was playing with the Browns, filling in at quarterback. It seemed like Njoku had like 6+ catches. Yep. Flacco seemed to do fine with that offense without Nick Chubb. Do you think that he could, really work this offense maybe even better than Gardner Minshew, get the Colts to the playoffs if he did have to, fill in, especially at the end if it mattered?
Yeah, I think it's a different style of offense that Flacco would be running. Gardner Minshew is more of that super timing, check down, kind of just get the ball out quick, West Coast kind of guy. Yeah, he's a risk averse, is the nice way to say that. But he's you're going to see different guys kind of thrive if Flacco's the guy that comes in. You're thinking, A.D. Mitchell's that deep threat guy, Alec Pierce that deep threat guy, Jelani Woods down the seam. Maybe it's kind of more vertical threats because Flacco's not afraid to air it out, not afraid to push those tight windows and give his guys a chance. 275 yards makes sense because if he's taking those deep shots, he just has to connect on them. I mean, if at that point you're kind of banking on your receivers to kind of bail him out a little bit and get open. And I don't know if Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell are those guys yet. So maybe it depends on when Flacco comes in. Maybe if he's coming in week 3, maybe it looks a little bit different than if he's coming in week 15.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this is why you pay a backup, man. This is why you get somebody who can actually run your offense, given if your starter has to go down. But let's just hope that does not happen. Patrick, as always, my friend, thank you so much for supporting this channel and everybody else that's tuning in right now. We can't thank you guys enough. So now that we answered Patrick here, we're going to get to Noah's first projection here, first bold prediction. Now, I love this one because I think this is also going to happen. And I just think that now with added talent in the draft and a nice depth piece on the interior, I think that this could happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this one up. Noah, go ahead and tell a little bit of people about this one right here, my friend. My bad, not that one. There we go.
Yeah, so actually, I don't know if I like this one so much anymore. After we came up with these earlier today, I threw it up there. I just don't think it's bold enough, Drake, because I think top 3 is very, very possible. I'm going to go top 1. I think they're going to lead the NFL in
Top
sacks next
one.
season. I mean, just last season, they had 51 sacks. You're losing nobody on that defensive line that really provided those, except Jacob Martin with 2 and some other of these role players, and you're replacing them with the number 1 defensive player off the board in this draft class. And Latu's a little unique in terms of pass rushing rookies. You're drafting an older pass rusher who's already technically refined. He's not kind of this raw traits guy that everybody kind of goes after early in the draft. The Dallas Turner maybe would have been more of that kind of project guy that would have taken a little longer to get these sacks. But I feel like you're dropping Latu into a defensive line, and he's going to immediately be able to reap the benefits of a team that had 51 sacks. Last year they were 5th in the NFL in sacks. I don't know what the leader was. The leader maybe was around 61. So if you're getting this same production from guys, which Ebukam sitting at 9.5, I'm not sure is entirely realistic to expect again. But maybe there's an uptick in guys like Kwity Paye and Dio and Tyquan Lewis if he's seeing a little bit more time. But I think there's enough to make up for that. And then you're adding on top of that whatever Latu gives you. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 12. I mean, it could be anywhere in that range, I think. And kind of depending on where that range ends or where he falls in that, then that'll get you from number 3 to number 1, I think.
Yeah, and I recently did I did my own like 5 bold predictions for the season, and I predict that they're going to go over 60 sacks as a team. I really do. I think that this isn't even that entirely bold to say that they could lead the league, because last season you've got the Ravens at 60, then the Chiefs at 57, the Dolphins at 56, the Bills at 54. And the Colts were at 51, and they didn't even have anybody go over 10 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. And so now that you're adding a guy like Latu, who has potential to really hit the ground running, guys like Buckner, guys like Kwity Paye, who really need to answer the bell. A guy like that has to answer the bell as a pass rusher, not as a run defender, but as a pass rusher. I think that this is entirely possible. Is there a player that you think will lead everyone on the team in sacks? And a follow-up question, do you think there's potential to have multiple 10-plus sack guys? Because last season, remember, they were the only team in the NFL that had 4 or more players with 8 or more sacks on a squad.
Yeah, I mean, you had a couple of guys that were already really close to that. I guess it kind of depends on where Ebukam's going to come out. Is his snap going to get reduced because Latu's coming in and some of these downs? So I'm not sure he's going to be sitting up there as high. I think Kwity Paye could be a guy if you see him take that next step. Dio, if you could see him take that next step. I think the Colts really are banking on one of the two, at least, to make that next step. Buckner's always going to be getting pressures, so you're not sure if he's going to – he had 8 last season. I think 10 would be reasonable for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 10. I wouldn't be surprised if Latu hit 10. And you just kind of have – yeah, I'd maybe cap it at 2 just because there's only so many people that can get them, right?
Yeah, and what the Eagles did a couple of years ago with having 4 guys at 10 or more sacks is just ridiculous. So, but I absolutely love that one. So we've got a super chat from the one and only the CFO of Horseshoe Huddle, Patrick Rye, with a $10 super chat. So as soon as I read this off and pass it on to Noah, Patrick, I will take 2 drinks for that one. That is a monster. So thank you so much. Last one. There will be one game where the starting offensive line is, I already love this because this kind of happened last year multiple times. That line was rotating. Yeah. Ryman, Nelson, Bortolini at center, Gonsalves at right guard, and Freeland. And their play will make Ballard think very hard about bringing back a vet next year. So multiple people, including myself, I don't know how Noah feels about this. I haven't exclusively talked to him about this, but Bortolini played center, okay? Played guard too, has played guard. Then you've got Gonsalves, who can play guard and tackle. And either one of those guys could really replace Will Fries,
Yep.
so probably not going to pay Will Fries, what do you think about that one right there? Do you think that it's going to make them consider, hey, one of these guys could fill in for Will Fries and the other guy could probably supplant Ryan Kelly? That's probably more likely Bortolini since, he played center.
Yeah. So you're looking at the roster right now and just kind of whose contracts are up after this season. On the O-line, you've got Will Fries, you've got Ryan Kelly, you've got some other interior guys, but just in terms of starters, those are the only two that are going to be gone. You're already investing so much on that offensive line in terms of just cap room in general, and then you go out, you spend a third, you spend a fourth, you spent a fourth last year on Freeland. So I mean, they're clearly preparing for not being able to return with all 5 starters that are starting this season to come back for another season after this. There's just only so much money that can go around, and when you're paying Quentin Nelson what you're paying him, you're paying or Braden Smith what you're paying him, and then maybe Ryan Kelly comes back, then I feel like Will Fries is pretty clearly the odd man out in that sense. So Gonsalves, Bortolini, I think, is a natural person to come in and replace them. I feel like the Colts are kind of already preparing for that when they made those selections, so that wouldn't surprise me. In this situation, we've got Ryan Kelly out and Bortolini starting at center, and that depends on that play. And I think, man, Shane Steichen loves continuity, so I think if he has a say in it, he's going to bring back as many of the guys that can come back. There were all those rumors about Ryan Kelly mulling retirement or whatever, and he shot those down. So I think for now we can assume he wants to return to the Colts, and I think the Colts would like to have him back. But yeah, I think with the depth that they drafted this season, they could really, I think they could be swayed one way or the other.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, man. Ryan Kelly is so he's just so dry when you interview him, like just a business type of guy.
It's the whole offensive line room that they just all have that same personality.
I'm telling you, man, pictures of Quentin Nelson when he goes up to the podium doesn't look entertained at all. And honestly, He looks like he just slept at the facility and got up right out of bed and just started talking. But it was interesting. We had a colleague at the time, Destin Adams. He asked, or no, I don't. This must have been after he was with Horseshoe Huddle, but he asked one time, asked Ryan Kelly. He goes, "What do you have to say about the rumors that you were going to get traded?" Because this was when him and Mo were potential trade candidates.
Yeah,
and he just goes, "Don't listen to him." And he was like, "Okay." And then just recently, he goes, "Anybody, what do you have to say about the?" I don't know who asked this, but they're like, "What do you have to say about the rumors that you're retiring?" He goes, "Check your sources." This is just a dude that does not really like the BS. So I like it, man. And you do have to prepare for the future, and it's better to do it sooner rather than later, especially with offensive lineman, and center is just a complex position to play overall. So, but yeah, absolutely love that question right there. So then we're going to go ahead and go into the next one here. Now, I don't think this one's really too far off. It might not be that bold, but it's really going to be dependent on something no one wants to talk about, and that's health. And I predict that Anthony Richardson will be the 2024 comeback player of the year. And all I have to say about this is if this man plays 17 games and most of, because it's just not going to happen. I don't know if there's ever been a roster that's stayed completely healthy, on one side of the ball for, more than 12 games in NFL history. So if they can limit the injuries at the crucial spots and continue to rotate in good depth, and Richardson can play 15, 16, 17 games, I don't see how this can't happen. I just don't. I mean, you've got a guy who has so many ways to hurt a defense. I always go back and tell people, watch the game against the Texans. I know that CJ Stroud, remove him. Okay. It was only his second game ever right after playing the freaking Ravens. So remove Stroud. Just DeMeco Ryans is a defensive mind. He comes from San Francisco as the defensive coordinator, just absolutely wrecking people. Okay. Shane Steichen made him look like a fool with Anthony Richardson. I mean, they didn't know what to do with this guy. He was faster than everyone, bigger than everyone, and just was one step ahead of everybody. So that mixed with the fact that you got A.D. Mitchell now, if Jelani Woods can be healthy, and you've got a nice collection of tight ends. The offensive line has good depth now, and they're resurgent coming off a strong season. Man, Jonathan Taylor, Evan Hall, a good receiving back. I just really like this. I'll go ahead and pass this on to you because I'll end it with my prediction. I do have a stat line that I've got put together,
Okay.
but what do you think about this right here? Do you think that it's, feasible, or do you think that there's a player that if they play the whole year and play well, they might be able to supplant Richardson even if he does his best?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who else is up for it. I feel like it's always. I mean, we didn't think Joe Flacco was up for it last year, and so
That's a good point.
I mean, and if you're looking to win this award, you've got somebody in your room that won it last year. I mean, maybe Anthony Richardson going for that, but I feel like his aspirations, I think, for the season are higher than that. I remember him when C.J. Stroud won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he was like, "Man, I really thought I had a shot at that. Guess I got to win MVP now." I mean, he's eyeing bigger things than comeback player of the year. I mean, I feel like it's not everyone in the Colts fan base, everyone in the Colts kind of market understands the excitement that Anthony Richardson brought in those first 4 games. It's kind of nice at this point to see the national media kind of watching that and being like, "Oh yeah, I mean he was rock solid," and Shane Steichen was being really creative with him, and that offense can be super explosive. So yeah, I mean, if he's playing all 17 games, I feel like, and he's anywhere near what he was in maybe the Rams game, the Texans game, like how we saw him last year, I find it hard to believe there'd be somebody having a better season coming off injury than him.
Yeah, and it's really the diversity of how he attacks a defense. It is the ultimate 1-2 punch because you're talking about everyone always likes to just drool over this guy's athleticism, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you should. He's the most athletic quarterback ever tested in history. Period. Okay, so but it's really the fact that this guy can hit any part of the field with the football, and you've got Josh Downs as your slot guy. You've got A.D. Mitchell, who could potentially be just a big play guy and an underneath guy. Pierce is the vertical guy. Pittman is the do-it-all leader, and then you've got a nice collection of tight ends here. And the way Steichen wants to be more explosive and just attack vertical, man, it's a perfect offense for Richardson if he can stay healthy to just succeed. And so do you think that outside of Pittman, everyone loves Pittman, everyone loves Jonathan Taylor. But with Richardson, if he has this kind of comeback player of the year performance, outside of those two, do you think that there's a player that if they remotely stay healthy for the most part, that they might have a breakout season?
You're talking about on the Colts?
Yeah, outside of Pittman or Taylor, because I mean, they've pretty much already broken out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're looking at guys staying on the offensive side of the ball, Jelani Woods, the guy we talked a lot about earlier this week.
That'd be great.
There's a lot of moving parts that we talked about in that tight end room, but if he establishes himself, he has all the tools to break out. Looking at the defensive side, Dallas Flowers coming off that Achilles injury. I feel like he got kind of robbed of his breakout season because he was really coming on strong those first 4 weeks as a corner. So maybe we're hoping he's the same guy when he comes back this year and he gets that full opportunity again.
Yeah, and look, real quick before we move on to the next one here, I love the fact that Noah loves Dallas Flowers because I'm telling you right now, the Colts and Ron Miles, defensive backs coach, also love Dallas Flowers at cornerback. So this guy was playing great football, and I'm right there with Noah. You watch those first 4 games, look at the metrics, the numbers, they all check out as a cornerback that could start. So so then next here we have one of Noah's predictions. This is one that doesn't have to do with the player. Now, I love this because it's just customary in the NFL. When you do good at your job and you're not a head coach, you get considered for a head coaching gig or at least a promotion. And this guy's at the one last thing before you can actually be a head coach. So Noah, go ahead and dive into this one a little bit. I love it. JBC, offensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts. He's coming into year 2. Talk about this one a little bit, Noah. Why do you think this could happen?
Yeah, so I kind of worded this a little bit specifically. I didn't say he's going to get a head coaching job next year. I just kind of left it. This will be his final year as offensive coordinator, and I think this can kind of go one of 2 ways. I feel like with the way that Shane Steichen values continuity, the more likely way is he gets kind of lured away from another team. He's in this offensive coordinator role where he's not the play caller, and I feel like if a job comes up where he has the opportunity to run an offense with maybe a defensive-minded head coach gets hired somewhere, or a defensive-minded head coach loses their offensive coordinator, he could be a viable replacement. I think he could entertain the job there. And I feel like Shane Steichen's the kind of guy that would would give his blessing to go pursue opportunities where he can further his career. The tail end of that, or the opposite end of that, is the Colts offense is super disappointing this season. And I don't think Shane Steichen's going anywhere. And when there's a disappointing offense and your head coach who's running the offense is sticking around, there's got to be one of the bricks has to cave, right? So, and I think he would be kind of that first man up in that position. So I think the more likely route is that the offense exceeds expectations and he kind of gets an opportunity elsewhere, whether that's as a play caller for another team or maybe get some head coach interviews. The less likely one would be an utter collapse by the offense, and that would be the fallout there.
Yeah, and look, man, okay, so JBC, which we'll just say it once and only once. Jim Bob Cooter, done. JBC, while he doesn't call the plays, he is crucial in the development of the quarterback. Okay. And he was one of the guys, I think, as a passing game coordinator with Trevor Lawrence that helped him get the hell out of that Urban Meyer year in year 2. Okay. So JBC knows ball, and he was the offensive coordinator for the Lions in the Jim Caldwell era when they were winning games with Stafford. So it's a guy who knows the quarterback. So if they were to lose him, let's say that they just kick total ass. Don't think, oh, the guy didn't call plays, not that big of a loss. Big loss. Okay, Shane Steichen personally brought this guy in. So do you think that – so clearly they have Cam Turner as a quarterback coach, right? Yep. And he's worked with Kyler Murray, Cam Newton. Great repertoire of knowledge. But do you think that hypothetically if this happens, is that going to be an offensive coordinator role for Cam Turner finally?
I mean, it could be. Think it's so hard for me to grasp these things. They just brought in passing game coordinator Alex Tanney,
which they didn't even have that position.
Yeah,
last year.
That didn't exist. They created that position to get him on the staff, so they obviously see something there. So I mean, those are kind of two guys. I mean, whenever you're thinking offensive coordinator, you're thinking directly. I don't know, guys that worked with the quarterback, your franchise quarterback, especially if your franchise quarterback is young and killing it. Then those are the guys that usually get the looks. So yeah, I mean, they definitely have some people that might be able or might be qualified to fill that role just based off of the connection that they had working with Anthony Richardson if he does take off this season.
Yeah, and hey, man, if this were to happen, best of luck to him, man. He's a hell of a guy. Really, really, really good interview too. He'll give you pretty much all the information that he can possibly divulge. Awesome guy to ask questions. And also, ADHD is showing in full display here. Let me give my bold Anthony Richardson stat line because I was so I remembered so well that I completely forgot to give it. Okay, so I personally, and I want your opinion on this. I think Richardson, if he plays all 17 games, 276 of 457 passing, that is 60.3% completion for 3,423 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions. But I think that he's going to have 127 carries for 673 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns. But I think he's going to have to learn to hold on to the ball in year 1. I think he fumbles 7 times. What do you think?
I'm just pulling this up because I'm trying to the first name that came to mind was Jalen Hurts in his 2022 season. Is kind of what I'm trying to compare that to.
Push.
Yeah.
Right on the goal line all day. Yeah.
A guy who had more yards. What give me that touchdown to interception ratio one more time that you had for him.
24 touchdown passes to 13 interceptions.
Man, that's super. I don't know if you looked at Jalen Hurts' 2022 season when you were trying to come up with this, but man, those numbers are really similar, honestly.
Really?
23 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. Like 400 more yards than you said, and a little bit higher completion percentage. Nice. I feel like, that 60% completion number I think is a little bit concerning and a little bit low. I'm not sure. I mean, low in the sense of, or on the scale of other NFL quarterbacks. I don't necessarily think that's
league-wide. That's not good.
Yeah, league-wide it's not good, but I do think it's reasonable for you to come up with that stat line based off of kind of his play style. He's going to spray it every now and then. He's going to throw high a lot. And you're just kind of living with that based on the way he can extend plays and really be dynamic. So yeah, I mean, that stat line does make sense to me.
Love it. Well, if anybody in the chat has a prediction for how they think Anthony Richardson is going to fare in 2024, please do not hesitate to put it in the entry there. So we've got two more here, and then we've got news and rumors. So me and Noah each have one more. I love this one just because everyone loves talking about Leatu Latu. Everyone loves talking about just the high level pass rushers in the NFL, and a lot of times this guy gets completely overlooked, and he's absolutely phenomenal. I believe that DeForest Buckner is going to eclipse 10 sacks and lead the team. I didn't put this, but again, in quarterback pressures last season, just relentless. I think he had 52 per Pro Football Focus. I mean,
Yep.
Buckner is just the model of consistency. He hasn't had 10 plus sacks since he was a Niner, and he had 12 and a half, I think, or 12. I mean, he just destroyed people in that defense. So I think this is possible because of two things. I think of Charlie Partridge with that defensive front, because they didn't take anybody off that front. They even kept Taven Bryan. Okay. Yep. They removed Nate Ollie as the defensive front coach. Clearly they like who they had. They just felt they need a personnel change. There's not enough pressure on the quarterbacks. Enter Charlie Partridge and Leatu Latu. I think those two things paired with year two of the same guys all in a group, man, I love DeForest Buckner here. Do you think that he could get 10 plus sacks? Do you think he could set a career high? What are your thoughts on this one, man?
Yeah, so I mean, there's different stats based on who you're looking at. ESPN had him at 8. I think PFF had him at 9 sacks.
Yeah, I think they count half sacks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then 52 total pressures. The next highest was Samson Ebukam. I think the drafting of Latu, I think, will really kind of help your case here for getting 10 sacks and leading in pressures. I feel like Latu is going to be the guy cannibalizing Ebukam and Lewis and Odengbo and Pace snaps. He's not touching Buckner snaps. He's not coming off the field. So, I mean, so you're going to probably see everybody else's pressures drop, and his will essentially stay the same. And he was already leading last year. So I think, QB pressures, I think we should expect him to lead in QB pressures just based on the amount of playing time that he's gotten and just kind of his penchant for winning in pass rush situations as it's already existed in his career at this point. 10 plus sacks. I mean, sacks are so hard to predict. You could be somebody who's getting Yannick Ngakoue sacks and not getting a lot of pressure, and then you can be someone who's applying constant pressure and not getting there to finish when you need to. So I feel like that's hard to predict, but I mean, 10's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for him.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I absolutely will say that I think that along with him getting 10 plus sacks, I also do think that there's a chance Kwity Paye could do it. I was this close to putting Kwity Paye just because I think that the talent is there, man. And I also think that the Colts gave him some confidence, giving him that fifth year option. So, well, we have real quick before we get to the final one, we've got two comments I want to highlight here. AR will end the season as fantasy QB2. That would be fantastic because I'm telling you, I had him in one league, and while he was playing, fared pretty damn well. Yeah. I mean, he was a lot of fun to have. And then we've got AR will take the Colts to the playoffs. So, hey, you know what? If that could happen, that'd be fantastic. So we're going to get to the last one here. Now, this one is my favorite of all of them because it's probably the one that no one's even thinking about the most of all 6 of these. And Noah, I want you to go into depth about this because you've provided a few times to me the stats that show this man could legitimately be a lead defender on a defense, and he wasn't even a day 1 or day 2 pick. So, Noah, please describe, lay out your feelings on Jalen Jones becoming a esteemed quarterback in this Colts defense.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I've definitely talked about it with you, with Andrew. Anytime I've been on the show, I feel like I don't know if I'm trying to push it, but it kind of naturally comes up because I feel like people should know that. So here, it's my last episode filling in for Andrew. I'm ready to officially plant my flag as the Jalen Jones guy. So,
hell yeah.
Yeah. When just looking at the raw, I mean, a 7th round pick that competed, earned his way to that playing time, significant starting snaps. Just a guy that wouldn't go away. The guy that made you cut your 5th round pick in Darius Rush. He beat him out. He beat out Julius Brents for those starting reps early, and then kind of Juju kind of after his injury came back. But he didn't replace Jalen Jones. They were just starting alongside each other. So he didn't lose his playing time. His playing time didn't decrease as the season went on. It started high and it ended high. So he's kind of that guy that they kind of hold in high regard, despite being a 7th round rookie last season. Just looking at, he's the youngest player on the Colts defense. He's 22. He just turned 22. He's 6 months younger than the next youngest player on the defense. So, I mean, when you're thinking about, hey, we finally got a guy at a premium position that can produce, and he's young and he's on a super cheap contract, he's that guy. And he's produced at a super high level with kind of all the things that they value. He's super good tackling after the catch. He's always playing close. He's always playing contested. So he's limiting those yards after the catch. I think when I was kind of going through and charting these stats and these kind of metrics that kind of define how well a quarterback is playing, he kind of jumped off the page of being like, oh, he was that good in that. He was that good in that. And it was like everyone that I was looking at that was super important or that I felt was important, he was super high at. So his yards after catch per reception at 1.84. And I just threw that at like the average first round rookie gives up, 4.11 after the catch. So he's like 3 times as much is what the average first round corner is given up. And you got him in the 7th round, targeted at 12%. Instead of the normal 15%. Yards per coverage snap was well under 1. The average is 1.21, and he was sitting at just under 0.7. So just the amount of times that he's getting targeted is super low. The amount of yards that he's giving up per time that he's targeted is super low. And when they do catch it, the amount of times that he's given up yards after the catch is super low. The big thing that was kind of difficult for him, or like a knock on him, was the lack of the ball production. 0 interceptions, not a lot of batted passes, and he gave up more touchdowns than the average cornerback would. I kind of chalk that up to being that 7th round pick and a 21-year-old kid coming in and playing against the best athletes in the world, and giving up those touchdowns. I feel like touchdowns isn't a super, like, it's a volatile stat that'll change year after year. So I don't think you're going into this season expecting him to give up the same amount of touchdowns that he gave up. I think year 2 in the system, a little bit more composure and confidence, being that guy starting on the outside. I think he's going to be a little bit more confident and calm in the red zone, especially. And that's going to take that number down. And really, if that number goes down, that's a bona fide starting cornerback.
Maestro explanation from Noah Gebert, ladies and gentlemen. That right there is analysis, if you've ever heard it. So, my favorite thing about Jalen Jones coming out when he was drafted, anyways, you look this guy up and you can't find a lot of tape on him. Well, not you can't find a lot of tape. You can't find as much as you would think from a guy who played, for Texas A&M, and was a top cornerback. You're like, well, where the hell is this guy's tape? Where's all these highlight plays? Couldn't find him. Here's why. No one would ever target him. He removes your receiver. I mean, he takes away your pass catcher. You know who else used to do that? Darrelle Revis. I mean, not saying he's Darrelle Revis. Big expectations right there. I'm saying that is Jalen Jones' style. I can't remember what the stat was. I tried looking it up and couldn't find it on a whim. But I believe he allowed the least amount of receiving yards in his last season at Texas A&M in FBS. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is 6'2", 6'3", about 200 pounds. He is big and physical, and he's a lot like Juju Brents. He's not the fast guy, but that's where you've got guys like Dallas Flowers to help you out. That's where you've got guys like Kenny Moore to be the quick, slot guy. I'm all about Jalen Jones. I think he's a dog. I think that he got destroyed by Devontae Adams when they played the Raiders. Who the hell doesn't? There's top corners that get destroyed by Devontae Adams every week when the NFL season's in full swing. I swear, look at the guy. Even with Aiden O'Connell, still makes plays. So my point is, I think Noah's onto something. I think that Jalen Jones and Dallas Flowers both are the reason that you didn't see Quinyon Mitchell taken, Nate Wiggins taken, Cooper DeJean taken. The Colts could have. They could have. They had every single cornerback available when they could have picked, and they did not pick it. They didn't pick a corner. And I think it's because they like these two. What do you think? Do you think that they see a future? Because you got to remember, everybody, Zaire Franklin, Will Fries, Rodney Thomas II, and Jalen Jones, all four starters, all 7th-round selections.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Dallas Flowers too, because I feel like he needs to get some love in this conversation also, because all those stats that I kind of rattled off for Jalen Jones, he was sitting up there too. And you're looking at just kind of both these guys. With him, you're a little bit more worried because it was a 4-game stretch and not as many snaps as Jalen Jones played, like getting in the whole season. So just good that Jones showed that consistently over the course of a season. You kind of hope that Flowers can project that out to an entire season and perform that way. If they do, I think it must have been last Friday. I think we were talking about players that need to step up. And I was talking about Juju Brents, and kind of at the end of that conversation, you asked me if he'd be a starter. And I said, day one, I would start Dallas Flowers and Jalen Jones. I wouldn't start Juju Brents right now, just because I think they're there right now. Yeah, no, people aren't going to like that. And he was a 2nd-round pick, and I feel like he's going to get every opportunity to prove that he's the guy, and I think he deserves that. But yeah, just based off of how they played last season, if Dallas Flowers is still that same guy, I think Jalen Jones and Dallas Flowers are the top 2 corners on the team. When you're looking at those, like the rookie season that Jalen Jones had, and you're kind of trying to compare it to some other guys, some other rookie seasons that we've had in the past, there's guys like, I don't know, Derek Stingley, Deontay Banks, recently Caleb Farley, who have had okay rookie seasons. He's nowhere close to them. He's more up there with Trent McDuffie, the Pro Bowler for the Chiefs, with Sauce Gardner at the Jets. Like, he's more in that realm than he is with those other run-of-the-mill guys.
And that is why I absolutely loved the fact that you dove into that, because nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. Like, the guy is on the trajectory as a 7th-round pick, almost got completely overshot. In fact, It was just Jake Witt that was the last pick before Jones for the Colts in the entire 2023 draft. So, I mean, he's got a lot of potential. You know what? I feel like before I move on here, because there was a comment I wanted to highlight. Noah, is there anything else that you want? And I mean this because people need to realize that Dallas Flowers and Jalen Jones, their potential, if they can continue to ascend and learn like Jones did and stay healthy like Flowers, because an Achilles injury, it is a pain in the ass. It's just awful. It sucks. In some ways, it's worse than an ACL at this point, the way that technology has kind of moved. But if these guys can play at a consistent level, fans, you might have 2 starters right there. And you got them. One was supposed to be a returner, by the way, who was an elite returner with Bubba Ventrone as his special teams coordinator. And the other guy was a 7th-round pick. So is there anything last that you want to, tell fans about these guys and why they should just rest easy that maybe a top corner wasn't taken?
Yeah, whether you're resting easy or not, I think kind of depends on how much you trust a Colts organization to kind of evaluate their own guys, which is you'll have your opinion. You'll have your opinions on that,
Yeah.
But I mean, they came into this offseason with Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, Dallas Flowers. Those were their outside guys. They had opportunities to sign people. They had Chidobe Awuzie on the free agents, Kendall Fuller on the free agents. They had all those opportunities to select a corner in the 1st round. They didn't feel like maybe those guys were marginal upgrades. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they felt that way. Whatever they felt like the difference in play they'd get between the guys that they had and the guys that were available was not enough to block their development. They wanted to be able to give these guys the playing time to develop and really see what they have, especially considering they didn't invest anything in these guys. Dallas Flowers, a former undrafted free agent, Jalen Jones, a 7th-round pick. I mean, they've got an opportunity here to have these 2 young guys at a critical position and kind of see them battle it out, because they've both showed promising things. And I think they're expecting one of them to come out as a starter here. And not just a Colts starter, an NFL caliber starter.
Oh, no. And the thing is, when you put them in the same conversation, everyone talks about Sauce Gardner, but like when everyone was wetting their pants over the L'Jarius Sneed possibility, look, guess why another reason is the Colts didn't take L'Jarius Sneed. Number one, they have a set, and Andrew pointed this out all the time. The Colts set their limit. That's it. They set that price limit. And it's not just them. A lot of teams do this. Okay, they set that limit, and if the guy goes over it, they're like, well, guess what? We're out. We're good. Because the Colts have a lot of other guys, mainly that offensive line, you have to pay. Okay, so I was telling people, man, Trent McDuffie is a far better cornerback than L'Jarius Sneed. Okay, L'Jarius Sneed doesn't even have an All-Pro nomination. Okay, like Trent McDuffie was better, and I think L'Jarius Sneed was better because of him. Not saying he's not going to succeed in Tennessee, but we will see. The point being that the Colts believe in their cornerback room. Okay, They think that they've got some depth. They just took Jalen Simpson, flipped him to cornerback, and by the way, phenomenal coverage safety, amazing coverage safety, 4.4 second speed. You know who else kind of was like that? Dallas Flowers. Not saying that Simpson's going to be the same guy, but I think that I agree with you. I think the Colts are confident in their cornerback room. So, you know what? Since you mentioned it, since it's your final episode, I might point out for now, everybody, any parting thoughts that you want fans to know, that you're thinking about the Colts. I mean, you've got some outside the box ideas that tend to be pretty badass. So let's hear them, man.
I feel like just me in general, I'm going to be cautious. I'm an optimistic guy, and I feel like sometimes that comes off as me being pessimistic about the Colts, and just kind of noticing comments when we're going over the schedule of, oh, Noah doesn't think we can win against good teams. I know the Colts can win against good teams. I'm going to
be hard
for them to be or win against good teams. But yeah, I'm always going to come at it like not expecting anything really out of anybody, and try just like with the Jelani Woods hype. I would love it if Jelani Woods was this monster at tight end next year. I think that'd be awesome. We need to see it, right? And I'm always going to be kind of that guy that's waiting a little bit. So I feel like I'm just going to be a guy who's a little wary on Anthony Richardson. I'm going to be a guy who's a little wary on the health of JT. I'm pretty much every position that you go down on the Colts roster, I feel like they're taking gambles and there's question marks. But I agree with most of the gambles that they're taking. It's not like I'm sitting there thinking, oh, they should have done this another way. I've been like, well, it might work, it might not, but that's kind of how the league goes.
Yeah, and don't forget, Jake Witt, Evan Hull, Daniel Scott, Anthony Richardson, damn near half the freaking class of 2023 didn't even play.
Yeah.
Because they were hurt. The Colts were 9-8, and they can be considered in 2023 an injury-riddled team. I mean, so I love the fact that Noah is honest. We try to be as absolutely just objectively honest on the show, whoever's on it, as possible. So Noah, thank you so much. Everyone, if you haven't followed Noah Gebert, please, for the love of God, follow him at Noah Gebert on X. Absolutely fantastic writer. We're happy as hell to have him. So there's actually before we get to the news and rumors, which there's really not much. In fact, jokingly, me and Noah were saying to each other, this is not news and they are not rumors, but we will get what we can when it is boring as content creators and analysts and writers. Patrick Rye poses something that's really interesting here. Since we're on the topic of cornerbacks, we have a little bit of time. Still think the Colts need to sign another vet cornerback, if nothing else, than for depth, because Brent's is going to miss a game or two. Now, Brent's had like a calf, a forearm. He only played 9 out of 17 games, but even leading up to when he was drafted, he was hurt. So do you think that, that they should sign another veteran cornerback? Because there are still some alluring names out there that could potentially provide depth. Nothing that's like real starter level talent, but
yeah,
in a Gus Bradley scheme, there's a lot of cornerback types that could work.
Yeah, I mean, if you go out to sign a guy, I think this is a vet minimum guy that you bring in just because for the reasons that I kind of laid out. I think they know who their starters are. I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but I think they're a little bit more comfortable kind of living in that uncertainty there. Then they brought in Jalen Simpson, Micah Abraham. That's not a reason to not grab a guy, but I think it reduces the need a little bit. Yeah, maybe you're bringing in a vet minimum guy. I'm not sure who's out there for sure to maybe compete with Darrell Baker for cornerback 4, cornerback 5. Yeah, but I don't think you're really like even people talking about Steven Nelson. Who would have been kind of that lower tier starter for a little bit cheaper contract. I think even that's maybe a little bit too much for the cornerback room right now.
Hey man, look, fans, first off, Patrick, thank you so much for the very thought-provoking question here. At the end of the day, guys, these people are watching these players day in, day out, traveling. The scouts are putting freaking tires to the road. I mean, they know what they're talking about. Okay, far more than any one of us, and we cover the team daily. Okay, so it's just one of those things where, at the end of the day, Chris Ballard does not like to just throw money at somebody, and we've seen too many of those types of contracts bite teams right in the ass.
Yep.
Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, anybody. So, well, hey, that's the end of our show. I do want to get to a couple of quote unquote news and rumors. And these are actually I think that they're worth covering. So 3 things real quick. Number 1, Michael Pittman Jr. smashed his knee during OTAs. I remember just seeing my phone blow up and Pittman was down and people were like doing the gif where it's like, we can't have nice things. And it's like, just give it a second. But Shane Steichen eventually came out and said, they just collided. People, this is going to happen probably 2 or 3 more times before the end of OTAs. So the other thing is that AR and Jonathan Taylor are working consistently together. Remember last year, Taylor had contract issues. He was going to get traded to the Dolphins. So this is really the first time these two have ever been able to work together. So real quick, we'll touch on that, Noah. How exciting is that to see 2 of the most dynamic runners at different positions with a dynamic play caller working together in the offseason? Like, does that not get you excited?
Yeah. I remember last offseason when all the Jonathan Taylor kind of drama was going on. You're like, should we sign him? Should we not? They're talking about, oh, you have an elite running quarterback. You don't need an elite running back to kind of draw that attention. Yeah, but what if you did? I mean, that's better. Obviously, you're going to be excited about having those 2 guys and those option plays that are going to be so deadly when you're not sure which one you should be focusing on more. Because if you lean too hard or you're swaying one guy or the other, I mean, it's going to come back to bite you because both those guys have home run potential.
Yeah, and the last thing is, Anthony Richardson said he's feeling himself again, getting into the swing of things for OTAs. I don't really think that's the big thing. I think that, real quick, going back when he was interviewed right after the season ended for the first time, and he said, I was really down after the injury. I couldn't lift my shoulder. You should just see a still image of his face walking off the field in that Titans game. He just looks like his life is over. Like the guy, I can't imagine the headspace he was in, but he's a strong kid, everybody. He's like 22, just had a birthday. So he's young as hell, one of the youngest guys on this team, but he's feeling better. It's mental before it's physical, even for Anthony Richardson, people. How does this make you feel, thinking about the guy? Do you think he's finally going to slide when a tackler comes within 5 yards of him, Noah?
No, I think it's going to be a little bit better. But when we went through that thing with Andrew Luck, I mean, it's hard to change a guy's DNA and kind of how much he wants to win, how much he wants to play. The more experience that Andrew Luck got, the better he was at avoiding those hits. And I think the same thing will happen with Anthony Richardson, where it's not going to be snap, got injured. Oh, I'm fixed now. I'm going to slide all the time. We're still going to see him take on tacklers. And it's just going to be, we're just going to live with that because that's the way he plays the game. I feel like you're not really asking him to change himself that much.
Yeah, very fair. Well, hey, everybody, that is our show. So, final thoughts, Noah, on the Indianapolis Colts heading into OTAs. I mean, man, it's probably the most excited I think a lot of people have been about an Indianapolis Colts roster in years, because I can't really recall a year where Andrew Luck had the weapons, even that Anthony Richardson, or offensive line that Anthony Richardson has right now. So there's reason to be excited. There's definitely reason to be excited. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to keep the streak going. Episode 4 here. Everything we talked about doesn't matter if Anthony Richardson doesn't play well, and if he doesn't play, if he's not on the field. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of final thoughts as we're kind of keeping ourselves busy with this unserious stuff. Trying to figure out. I mean, there's a lot of good storylines on the team and a lot of exciting players to follow. And I'm a big Jalen Jones guy. And I love watching that. But really, no matter how good Jalen Jones is next year, we're going to be excited about it. But the Colts aren't going to go where they want to go unless Anthony Richardson's the guy.
It's a quarterback-driven league, people, with no star quarterback on the field, especially after you invested a 4th overall selection in him. Really can't have Super Bowl aspirations. So that is our show. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Patrick, You are crazy. Thank you so much for being the CFO of Horseshoe Huddle and everybody else. Thank you so much. Stats Matt, I saw in the chat. Sorry I didn't highlight your chat. Essentially the third host of this show. And real quick, before we hop off here and talk about what we're writing, follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow us on X, at Colts on FN. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube and go check out our written content. I recently did my predictions, my bold predictions. I also did a couple other aggregate pieces. But people, before I even ask Noah what he's been writing, please thank this guy so much for filling in for Andrew while he's been taking care of his son Jackson. Noah is a newer member of our team, but my God, are we happy to have him. Noah, what can the people go check out that you've either written? Do you have anything awesome coming up? Go tell the people what they should see.
Yeah, so just wanted to thank you for letting me come on these last 4 episodes.
Hell yes.
That's been awesome. Like it coming in, I feel like it's when you're writing stuff, it's hard to kind of get your face in front of people. And I liked this platform to kind of introduce myself to the kind of the Horseshoe Huddle audience and kind of show myself. I feel like my work carries a little bit more weight when people kind of know, like they've seen me talk, they kind of know what's going through my head, what kind of guy I am. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on to do that. Haven't been writing a whole bunch these last 2 weeks because I'm trying to fill the enormous shoes that Andrew Moore left behind when he took this little sabbatical. But yeah, I mean, as kind of the dog days of summer go on and we're kind of looking for things, I'm going to be really digging in. This is going to be kind of an off season of kind of learning some more things about the game for me. Where there's less news going on, I'm going to be digging into the film. I'm going to be watching a ton of what the Colts did last year. I'm going to probably watch a ton of what Shane Steichen did in 2022 with Philly. And just kind of try to understand the offense a little bit better. Cause I mean, there's a ton of great stuff. A lot of people on the Horseshoe Huddle staff, especially, that are writing really good stuff about kind of what Shane Steichen's offense looks like. I'm the kind of guy that I want to see it for myself. I'm going to read that. And I'm going to take that into account, but I want to see it for myself just because I feel like it helps me learn a little bit better that way. So most of what I'm going to be writing this summer is going to be an exploration into kind of what I'm learning about the team.
Beautifully said, man. Well, hey, everybody, we can't thank you enough for taking your Thursday to join us. And like Noah said, it's the freaking dog day. So please go check out all of our written work on horseshoehuddle.com, on si.com. And we will be back not on Monday, but on Tuesday. Andrew Moore will be making his triumphant return. And don't worry, I've also been filling in for his host duties. And holy crap, is there a lot of work involved with that. So, Andrew, thank you so much for everything that you do. But Noah, appreciate you, my friend. I think that everyone will be seeing definitely more of Noah in the future. And until then, everyone have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Watch the Indy 500, and we'll be talking more Colts on Tuesday. Thank you so much, everybody.
Go Pacers.